All right, welcome back to the TW Local 591 Friday Call Recap Podcast. My name is Gary Scheibel, the local president. Joining me again today would be your administrative executive board member, Russ Dittmer.
Hello, Gary.
All right, so this is the February 7th, 2025 Friday Call Recap. We just got done having a good discussion with our reps across the country. Starting out right away, Tony Lepore had he just wanted to thank everybody that so far has participated in the benefits survey. Also wanted to thank those of us on the board that have supported the peer support efforts on getting much better voluntary insurance and benefit options. A lot more to come on that. Once again, he stresses, please fill out the member benefit demographics survey or form that's on our website. Will lead to much more reasonable rates for your insurance coming soon.
Yep.
So on that note, Russ, you want to take compliance?
All right. Our compliance and ASAP coordinators wanted to remind us that please do not assume that because you did the job yesterday, the paperwork didn't change and it's going to be the exact same job today. The paperwork changes constantly. Manuals are changing constantly. So make sure that you're reading the new paperwork. Make sure that you're complying with the new paperwork. And also, one of the things that they stressed was focus on the links for any of the required tasks. Sometimes it's just comply with this link and then move on to the next task. You need to go to that link and accomplish whatever that task might be. So, for example, if the manual says check the fluid level on one of the screens, and it also says verify the security of a panel, a cap, a compartment, both of those tasks are required, both the checking the screen and going out there and physically checking that component as well. Another item that they wanted to remind us of is the 787 is a different bird in a lot of ways. And one of the important ways that we need to remember is the really large number of electrical bonding tests requirements on the 787 that we're not really accustomed to seeing in the other fleet types. They're called out in the manuals and the cards, and they're in a lot of places. So please take the time to remember to, if there is a bonding test that's required, to get that bonding test done properly and correctly. With that, I'm going to move right into safety. Unbelievably, this is not going to shock some people. The PPE catalog, the JetNet links, and the QR codes are still not fixed. It sounds like at the end of the day, what the company is going to have to do is produce all new QR codes, all new hyperlinks, everything, because of this JetNet migration that is completely screwing up everyone everywhere. It's ridiculous. The good news, the PPE committee has continued reviewing different clothing and safety equipment. They do have reflective coveralls that they're going to be testing soon. And once those tests are done, we'll find out if they're going to be in the PPE catalog and available for our members to use. Mike Cochran wanted us to know that the Pittsburgh PPE Roadshow has been rescheduled due to scheduling issues between the station management, the coordinator, and others. So there is not a date yet, but they're going to, once they get one, they'll keep everyone apprised of that as quickly as possible. The last one is the Narcan naloxone. Apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. In the PPE catalog, it's there now. This drug or chemical is used for opioid overdoses. It's supposed to be administered when a person either shows signs of possible opioid overdose or an opioid overdose is suspected. The safety committee is pushing pretty strongly right now to get training on how to use it, when to use it, and all of that kind of information, because this is a really significant one that we definitely want our members to know what to do in that emergency situation well ahead of time. It's not the time to be reading a book. So, Gary?
All right. So, speaking of safety, obviously Super Bowl weekend, as always, it's a high risk for driving weekend. So please be careful, be safe, make good choices. But that said, the other one I'll touch on real fast, field trip update. There were 18 line field trips this past week, 3 base, and there are currently 4 that are active on their field trip as of right now. One issue that Executive Board Member Eric Albuquerque brought up was a credit card issue. Company owes us a response at this point on what to do for hotel incidentals if the member does not actually have a credit card. So there'll be more to come on that at the next meeting that he has every month.
All right. The next one is an update on the MLS scorecard and productivity tracking. MLSC board member Mike Jazerski has indicated on the call that he has scheduled calls and meetings over the next week or two on this specific topic and what it means, what it doesn't mean, what's going to be tracked, what's not going to be tracked, all of that. So at this point in time, just know that we are monitoring the situation and we are trying to get a better understanding of what's being monitored for what purposes and how we can better prepare our membership to utilize technology for our best interests moving forward. Along with that, scheduled travel this week. We were in Miami this week for the Southeast Region Quarterly. Along with that, next week is the West Region Quarterly. It'll be in San Francisco this time. And then after that, this week will be the Southwest Region Quarterly in DFW at our Grapevine, Texas building. And I see, Gary, you're looking at the right behind you is that beautiful new graphic that we've got installed.
Yes, it is. It's quite nice. Tells a lot of the history of this local. Those of you who have ever come by, please take a look. Check out the building. It's your building. So, one I did have this past week, a good conversation with Zach Tatsy is out of TW International. He is the government affairs, I guess, coordinator or director for the TW International. He's been working with us quite a bit on our bills in the past, trying to get them through Congress, and we've been quite successful. This past fall, there was uh, an FAA inspector. Actually, he asked a question about 2 years prior of what oversight should be of a non-certificated mechanic. So you have a lot of these facilities in the MRO world, especially where there's a couple licensed certificate mechanics, with their A&P, and then there's hundreds or God knows how many people that are out there that are non-licensed. And uh, CFR 14, it's 43.3D for those that feel like looking it up, um, speaks to what that should be. And the literal interpretation really is 1 for 1. So if you're going to work as a non certificated mechanic, you should have somebody looking over your shoulder that's actually a certificate. Um, he got that interpretation back in September, early October from the legal department of the FAA, as you might expect. The airlines, ARSA, A4A, you name it, any industry person literally lost their New York what, and complained up and down to the FAA about what is now known as the Morse interpretation. So the FAA put a stay on it, not a permanent stay, but just a stay on it. In other words, we're not going to enforce this until such time they gather more information and the facts and see, you know, is the Morse interpretation correct, or is the airlines Wild Wild West interpretation correct? Should we be doing oversight by Zoom? It's nice for a Friday call summary, but I really want to be doing it via Zoom for aircraft maintenance. So they're going to keep looking at it. The FAA was supposed to start looking at it soon, but obviously the tragedy that happened in DCA, their focus, their efforts at this point are on that. So unlikely to see any kind of movement really anytime soon. That said, our conversation this week was trying to get this onto the agenda of the Aviation Rulemaking and Advisory Committee. We actually, as TW, own a seat on that committee. So it's a pretty good place to try to get things potentially fixed, or whether it's fixed or it is a happy medium that we can get to. more to come on that once it goes through this committee. So that would be a pretty big one because if the airlines are forced to abandon their Wild West way of interpretation, it'd probably be forcing more jobs back into this country, which is a good thing for all of us.
Absolutely.
So,
All right. So the next one is an issue came up regarding bereavement and some of the benefits, both company and contractual, that you have when, uh, unfortunately, a bereavement situation occurs. And I don't want to go into the details of the situation, but what I really want to talk to is in the event that you have a significant bereavement or a bereavement event, the most important thing to do after focusing on your family, of course, is to communicate with your supervisor or manager directly when it's reasonably when you're reasonably able to do so, and communicate what your needs are for bereavement. If you need travel, if you have when you need to have your contractual bereavement pay covered, all of these things need to be communicated with the supervisor or manager in your station or your shift or whatever. And I think the best way to think about this is when you can get ahead of it and just communicate with your supervisor or manager. Hey, by the way, this has happened. I'm going to need, I don't know when, this benefit or that benefit. What do I need to do? And if it goes past 30 days, how does that work? And how can you work with me in these types of things? But once you go past a time period, there's no going back. They're just not going to unscramble the egg. It just doesn't happen. So unfortunately, what we really need is you to remember to communicate with your supervisor or manager when you do have a bereavement situation, and have them work with you. And if there's any problems, get a hold of a rep, a steward, a station chairman to help you navigate that process. Along with that, one other item comes up annually, and I'm the lucky guy on the e-board that gets to monitor it, and that is seniority protests. Um, the official seniority lists were received by the company on January 30th. They're required to be, um, the official lists annually are required to be posted by the last day of January, according to Article 11. So we received them on January 30th. That triggers the 30-day window for submitting a seniority protest for anything between the current official list and the previous official list. It's not like the old TW world where literally we saw protests from 20, 30 years ago. That no longer happens under the JCBA. But one of the things I do want to talk about with that is the errors and omissions that you may find. Please make sure that you, number one, take screenshots or pictures or whatever of those errors that you're seeing or omissions, but also understand that the rep that you're going to be talking to in your station or your region chair, whomever, is going to need some information from you. And that means you're going to have to go into a couple of places in JetNet because we can't access your personal information, your personal transfer information, your personal pay information, your seniority information. We don't have access to your histories. So you're going to have to pull up some screenshots and provide them for your seniority protest to back up and support your protest. If anyone in any of the stations, any of the reps have any problems, I've done a lot of these. I've dealt with a lot of them. I know what documents we need. I know where to find them. I'm absolutely happy to help anyone find the information to support their argument and their protest. I'm not saying I can win your protest, but because that's a
you're just saying he's an expert.
yeah. I'm not saying that the protest will be successful because it's not in Local 591's hands. Seniority protests are handled at the association level. My job is to help you accumulate all of the information you're going to need for the best seniority protest possible when it gets handed to the association for deliberation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gary.
All right. Well, that's all for today. That's our podcast. Thanks, Russ, for helping out again. Appreciate it. And as always, got feedback, questions, anything you want put on this podcast, please get hold of us. Info at Local 591 is the easiest way.
Yep.
or just contact one of us directly. But until then, we'll see you again next week. Thanks.
Have a great week.